Hi, welcome to Audiobook Academy. This is a self-paced audiobook. There's no need to keep an eye on things. Just pay attention. Thank you for taking the time to listen. This is a book summary of The Gifts of Imperfection. Let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. By Brené Brown. The book, The Gifts of Imperfection, argues that instead of trying to be perfect, we should embrace our flaws and learn from them. Empathy, understanding, and wholehearted living are the main tenets of this book, which encourages us to stop living for others and start living for ourselves. How to live a full life is about waking up each day and believing that no matter what gets done, or how much remains undone, I am enough. This includes going to bed and acknowledging our flaws, vulnerabilities, and anxieties. It is Brown's belief that despite our flaws, all humans are capable of courage, are worthy of love and belong to a community. Academic and best-selling author Brené Brown is known for her innovative approach to popular topics. Love, belonging, and worthiness are the subject of a plethora of works of fiction and non-fiction. In Brown's approach, her research on shame provides a unique perspective. Story catchers are people who are good at finding stories and then telling them to others. In this way, she's been able to explore the fears and ideas of shame and vulnerability that many people have. For us to live our lives from a place of worthiness, she says we must make some changes. To put it another way, to live life to the fullest. Wholeheartedness can be learned, as shown in this succinct summary. As Brown says, it also means letting go of the pursuit of perfection and abandoning the need to constantly seek approval from others. It's also about coming to terms with the fact that we are who we are, warts and all. It's true that we connect with others through our flaws and imperfections, not our pristine facades of perfection. Accepting who we are and what we have to offer takes courage, compassion, and a sincere desire to connect with others. There are 10 practical guideposts to wholehearted living in the book, as well as a list of daily practices that can help us along the way. What really matters and gives us meaning is our ability to connect with others. A core belief of Brené Brown's as a social worker was that our relationships matter. Is what makes us human, according to her. As soon as Brown started her doctorate, she wanted to look into the process by which we form meaningful connections with one another. However, as is so common when conducting research, she came across an important finding: the concept of shame. An 8-year detour is how she describes this research. As a result of this new perspective, she gained a better understanding of the anatomy of shame and the effects it has on our lives. She claims that shame damages relationships. Shame has 3 things to say about it. Brené Brown says she knows 3 things about shame with certainty. First and foremost, we all carry it around. Shame, on the other hand, is a universal emotion. Shame is one of the most primitive human emotions, yet we're hesitant to discuss it because it's so difficult. But the more we keep quiet about it, the more power it gains over us. Secrecy, silence, and judgment are all conducive to shame. Brown also makes the case that guilt and shame are not the same thing. Whereas shame focuses on the person rather than the act, guilt makes us feel like we've done something wrong. Essentially, it instills a sense of guilt in us. In contrast to shame, guilt focuses on the actions we've taken. Even though guilt can be a painful sensation, it can also serve a useful purpose if we use it to point out areas in which we can improve. Shame, on the other hand, is typically harmful. As a result of shame, people are afraid of being cut off from others. We believe that if others knew or saw something about us, it would make us unworthy of love and belonging. Because of this, shame is characterized by an excruciating sense of vulnerability. It wasn't what Brené Brown expected to discover, however, that vulnerability is the key to cultivating deep and authentic relationships. She came to the conclusion that people who feel like they belong and are loved are more likely to seek out relationships because they believe they are deserving of them. A lack of self-worth causes us to withhold ourselves. Researchers found that people who had a strong sense of self-worth dared to be flawed in their interviews. First, they were able to be kind to themselves, and then they could be kind to others. What's more, they were able to relate to each other because of their honesty. In order to be who they truly were, they were willing to let go of their idealized versions of themselves. They had no fear of being vulnerable. They had the delusion that their vulnerability was what made them attractive. In their minds, vulnerability was just another facet of who they were that they were willing to accept. A new perspective on exposure. Being able to say, "I love you" before someone else does and taking a risk with no guarantee of success are examples of vulnerability. After a personal journey, Brown was able to accept her vulnerability. A mini breakdown / awakening is what she calls this journey. For her, The 10 guideposts to wholehearted living were developed during this journey. Authenticity, compassion, resiliency, gratitude, joy, faith, creativity, a sense of purpose in one's work, play, and rest, as well as the ability to laugh and dance along the way, are just a few examples. Each sign, on the other hand, has two sides. As an example, we need to be able to let go of our concerns about what other people think in order to cultivate our own authenticity. We must learn to let go of our need for perfection and to be resilient if we are to cultivate compassion. Let go of the habit of numbing ourselves in order to avoid the pain. The first 3 pillars of the path, authenticity, compassion, and resilience, are the first 3 principles to follow. That's why these things matter so much. They get to the very heart of who we are. Let go of the opinions of others and cultivate your own uniqueness. Every day, we make decisions that contribute to our sense of authenticity. It's how we choose to portray ourselves and how honest and real we are. Choosing to be true to yourself isn't a simple decision. The key to being authentic is being able to balance the desire to be honest with the desire not to offend others. It's also about being able to express our thoughts without causing others distress. Rather than sounding like a know-it-all, it's daring to disagree without being confrontational. It's a delicate balancing act, and the choices we make can leave us feeling both hopeful and exhausted at the same time. The choice between being authentic and being liked is not always an easy one, and we'll have to make it at some point in our lives. However, it's not worth it to give up who we are for what other people think. To be safe is to open ourselves up to all kinds of negative emotions, like anxiety, sadness, and resentment. Standing our ground, according to Brené Brown, is a sacred act. In other words, it takes a lot of guts to find one's true self. Authenticity can only be achieved through courage. When the word courage was first coined, it meant to speak one's mind fully. Courage has taken on a more heroic connotation in the modern era. As Brown argues, we should return to the word's original meaning and embrace living fully. Courage allows us to be vulnerable and to take risks, even if those risks lead to failure. Courage allows us to believe in ourselves, even if we know that things may not go as planned. Playing down exciting events does not alleviate the pain if they never materialize. If it happens, the happiness will be diminished, however. The beauty of courage is that it inspires others to follow in its footsteps. Every time we take a risk, we inspire others to do the same and make the world a little more courageous. Brown argues that the anatomy of authenticity is the ability to accept one's flaws as part of the process of growth. As a result, if we want to grow in authenticity and bravery, we must establish boundaries and make ourselves vulnerable. Compassion stems from deep self-acceptance and the understanding that we are all a combination of strengths and challenges. We all need to practice more of this. Finally, cultivating a sense of connection and belonging requires cultivating self-compassion, which is only possible when we believe we are enough. Make a point of cultivating compassion and letting go of the need to be perfect. Recovering perfectionist Brené Brown aspires to be a good enoughist. That being said, she encourages us to shift our focus away from what others think of us and toward our own personal development. How many times a day do you feel self-conscious about your appearance? Many of us are self-conscious about our appearance and believe that we aren't worthy of love and belonging because of it. Rather than doing things for the benefit of others, Brown advocates healthy striving talk. For this reason, self-compassion is necessary to overcome perfectionism. Let me explain what I mean by perfectionism. Pursuing excellence does not imply perfectionism. In order to avoid the pain of blame, judgment, and shame, perfectionists try to convince us that we must look and act perfectly. Perfectionism serves as a shield. Self-improvement is also distinct from this. Perfectionism, at its core, is a desire to be accepted and praised. We believe that our self-worth is based on what we accomplish. When we feel inadequate, we need to be more forgiving of ourselves. We can only be present with others' darkness if we are able to be present with our own darkness, according to Brené Brown. As a result, compassion takes on real meaning when we acknowledge our common humanity. It entails realizing that experiencing feelings of personal inadequacy is something we all go through as human beings. A key takeaway from Brown's work on compassion is the idea that we should all pay closer attention to the way we treat ourselves. The author also suggests a balanced approach to negative emotions, so that these feelings are neither exaggerated nor suppressed. To avoid being sucked into our thoughts and emotions, we must practice non-identification in order to practice mindfulness. Let go of feelings of numbness and powerlessness and develop a resilient spirit. Brown also discovered that there is no such thing as selective numbing, which surprised him. We numb the light when we numb the darkness. Our joy, presence, and happiness are dulled when we try to alleviate pain and vulnerability. As a result, how can we maintain a sense of self-awareness and authenticity when we're under pressure? According to Brown, people who are resilient are also resourceful and good problem solvers. She claims that these people are more likely to seek help because they are confident in their ability to control their emotions. She also discovered that spirituality is an important component of resilience. She isn't talking about religion or theology when she refers to spirituality. For Brown, spirituality means acknowledging and celebrating the fact that we are all connected to each other by a power greater than ourselves. Love and compassion are the foundations of our relationship with that power and with one another. In order to gain a sense of perspective and purpose, Brown recommends a spiritual practice such as yoga or meditation. Having a clear goal and perspective is essential. Adversity or trauma can make it difficult to move forward without a sense of purpose and perspective. The ability to cultivate hope, practice critical awareness, and let go of numbing is facilitated by a deep understanding of spirituality. When you're feeling down, try this exercise. Brown recommends going through the following list when you're feeling low. The AEIOUI has arrived. A is to inquire, have I been absent? It's all about how much exercise you've done. I'm curious as to what you've accomplished today to better your own situation. On the other hand, O is all about you and what you have done for others. You wants to know if you've been holding on to feelings that you haven't expressed. Yep, that's what I'm saying. Make a point of expressing gratitude for the good things that have happened to you in the past 24 hours. In closing, here we go. With the help of her research and interviews, Brené Brown takes us on a journey. Wholehearted living is revolutionary, according to her. It may sound dramatic to call it a revolution, but choosing authenticity and worthiness over shame and guilt is a courageous act of resistance. Brown's tenets for life are relevant now more than ever because we live in a society that shames both ourselves and others. Freedom comes when we stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't, and it's the driving force behind this movement. We are urged by Brown to take ownership of our stories, and to embrace lives that are both messy and beautiful. It's also imperative that we tell our story if we can find a person who has earned the right to. For those who choose the path of wholehearted living, they may feel unsure and apprehensive, as well as terrify others, including themselves. In the end, we'll wonder how anyone can feel both brave and terrified at the same time. When you live your life wholeheartedly, you feel brave, afraid, and most importantly alive. Remember that shame loses its potency the moment it's spoken. Let your shame be known. Thank you for listening in Audiobook Academy. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content like this. See you in next audiobook.